All right, good to see you, Brittany.
You too.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started. Thanks everyone for joining us on this lovely Memorial Day weekend. Today we have the pleasure of hosting our friend and designer, Brittany Pierone. A little bit about Brittany is she's a product designer based in LA. She started her design journey at the design school at Arizona State. And during college, she interned at Nike for footwear design. After graduating in 2014, she returned to Nike campus to continue working in footwear, and she spent 4 years between Nike running and the field sports team. I'm going to hand things over to Brittany, and she can kind of dive into more about her background. But again, thank you so much, Brittany, for being a part of Lens. And
For having me.
for those who are attending, please start sending those questions over so that during the Q&A we can include them in our conversation. So thank you so much.
I don't get to see people's faces.
Unfortunately not. Our
Okay.
focus here, our focus for this webinar format is your content and the quality of it. So
I understand. Okay. Well, here we go. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen. No.
absolutely.
Okay. Cool. All right. So it looks like we have about 60 people in here. I'm totally like floored. All right. Share screen. Okay. Yeah. So in the meantime, while this is getting going, as he mentioned, my story was started at Arizona State with a major in industrial design, and then I interned at Nike in college between junior and senior year, and then I came back after college, was on campus for 4 years, and then abruptly quit and went to Africa, sort of as a soul searching, meaning finding experience. And then I ended up in LA just working on projects and kind of navigating, figuring out how to build stuff in the US. And in the meantime, I've kind of come to understand that I'm interested in giving back. I think that was the motivation for going to Africa, but I didn't know how to make it a tangible, passionate like trajectory and not just something sort of ethereal. And so I was like, well, I need to somehow blend my heart with my brain, and brain being design and heart being caring about people and their stories. And so I originally launched something that was a custom business of building product and trying to tell people this story of like compassion, meaning that the funding that I would raise would be for a greater purpose, and yet I was still building that you could buy and wear. And that just didn't seem to make enough sense. It's a great idea in theory, but being able to, as we all know, like branding and how you talk about stuff is really important. And that's really what I kind of want to talk about today. So proof of concept is what I'm now launching, and it's the idea that people, young people they have raw talent. They have, oh, there goes an earring. Raw talent. They have passion, but a lot of things are unproven until the skill set is like proved out in the market, or meaning you can get a job, you can develop a product on your own. um, and I love the idea of becoming this like incubator for young people to get the chance to build the legs that they need to run the race that they want to run. And I had so many people in my journey of the last 10 years, starting with my pole vault coach when I was 17, introducing me to design, through mentors in college, all my leadership at Nike, and my continued support from my peers now. I definitely am a product of their investment, and it motivates me to continue to want to push and grow. And so of course it's only the right thing to do to give that back. And I found out that that is something I'm really passionate about, not just do the right thing here and there. It's kind of a life mission. So And then so the idea is that young people are we're all these concepts until we're proven in the marketplace. And so I want to help people develop their skills to, like I said, get the legs to run the race that they want to run. And then I'm also an industrial designer, and I stay up late at night thinking about ideas, and kind of the awestruck energy that I've had from the beginning to now is still something that I have, where I'm just thinking of stuff all the time. So I didn't want to be an apparel brand. I didn't want to be a sneaker brand. I wanted to be a concepts brand. And as most of us know from design school, a proof of concept model is usually a deliverable in one of your assignments. So this is the idea that I will continue to make concepts, whether it's a piece of furniture, footwear, apparel, definitely bags and accessories. I would love to start building structures of different kinds. And all of that gets housed under this idea of proof of concept. So it kind of has a couple legs to it. I think Hector has my presentation. So Hector, if you want to click into it, and then I'll just tell you when to hit the next
Yeah.
slide, I guess.
Brittany, if you want to make me a host, if you go under panelist on the right.
Right.
So in the bottom, hit participants.
Yeah.
And then on the right, you'll get panelists and attendees.
Okay.
Go to a panelist and then right click on my name. And then it should say an option that says change to host. If you hover over my name, it should say more. And you can click that.
It says you are a panelist.
Right, but you're making me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make host.
Thank you.
Change.
There you go.
Got it. Cool. Okay. All right. So kind of the thing that has allowed people are like, how are you doing what you're doing? Or how did you do what you do? And, or did. And it's this idea of killing everything that you do. And I think as young people, it's really easy for us to look really far out and not necessarily equip ourselves with a tool belt to get to where we want to go. It's just, I want to make the cool stuff. I want to work with all the cool people. I want to have these big moments in my career, but you don't pay attention to the minutia that gets you to the place that you want to go. So this notion of killing everything that you do is something that has really worked for me and something I wanted to share. So you can go to the next slide. So these two buckets that I want to talk about is articulating your brain and then being the ultimate teammate. And articulate your brain sort of falls for the younger group that's still in college, and then be the ultimate teammate is something that's a little bit more of the young professional or the person that's trying to launch something and you need the right people around you to help you launch it. So Hector, you can click to the next one. Okay, so in college, right, you're developing a portfolio, you're developing a body of work that should warrant a job at the end of it. And what I see a lot of when I get portfolios or I get commentary is just a lot of work that is not necessarily organized. And there you see my college desk from senior year in the background. And I'm the queen of making messes and madness, so I understand. But laying out your work is really important. And this idea of illustrating your brain in a way that people can follow it is really important. And so I think we expect people to be, this term clairvoyant, meaning they automatically understand, they automatically can read your mind, they automatically can follow you. And there's not enough guidance from young designers to tell people, here's how you should look at my work. So that's hierarchy of graphic design. That's a process from what is the insight? What is the what is the thing that I'm starting with that's motivating this project? What is the problem that I'm solving? And clearly articulating that. And then you're doing your sketching, you're doing your mock-ups, you're doing your process, whatever your process may be. And people cannot necessarily follow just a dump of information. And so even like in a presentation like this, I'm telling you, I want you to pay attention to these things, and you have to really guide people through your work. And I see a lot of great work, but it's not well articulated. And so it's a bummer because your brain can kind of get lost in the sauce or lost in the mess. And so you can go on Behance, you can go on Chloroflot, you can look at websites, you can look at people's Instagrams, and the way that people curate information. Just start paying attention to like where and how they do that. And then from the ideology side, this idea of being amazing at what you do today. And a story of that was when I was in retail, and I paid attention to the job that I did in retail, even though I knew I would not work in retail my entire life. I was working at the Nike store for 3 years in college. And because I cared about what was happening on the retail floor, and I did my best, I gave my 100% to that. It gave my leadership in the store reason to vouch for me when headquarters reached out to them and was like, hey, is she, as solid as she seems? And to other people, it can seem like, oh, this doesn't matter. You can be subordinate to your direct reports. You can be indifferent to the things that seem extracurricular or on the periphery of your life experience. And that just is not a mindset that's going to take you very far. And so the whole point of this, like I said, is to kill everything you do. So be amazing at what you do today, every day, and giving your maximum to whatever's in front of you. And that helps you build your brand as an individual, meaning when people hear your name, when you close your eyes and you think of one of your friends, what are the top 3 words that come to mind when you think of them? People are doing that, maybe not that exercise, but you're branding yourself, in the way that you carry yourself, in the way that you take feedback, in the way that you push yourself to grow when your mentors critique you and evolve your work. And so that becomes really equally, in my opinion and in my experience, that has become equally as important as the level of work that I put out as a creative, is quote unquote your reputation. So make sense of the madness, articulate your brain, be clear, be concise, tell people visually with hierarchy how you want them to follow your brain. Do your best effort, and that will help you build your brand as you go. You can go to the next slide. So this was like an example of that for my college portfolio. And here, there could be a better visual of it, as far as certain sketches could be bigger than others. And that starts to tell people this is important, look at this. But it also is, it's still the madness. People love seeing people want to see the sketches. They don't want to see the rendering, so being authentic in that way is cool as well. You can click the next slide. Okay, so this starts to shift, and I would say this is like something that's true no matter where you're at in your process. And this applies to anybody. I mean, this is not just per creatives or designers, and that is that insights are your credibility. And I think a lot of times young people live and die on the wrong swords, and you got to know what swords to die on, and what are the things that you really, stick your stake in the ground and stand up for, and what are the things that you just sort of move on from. And I think insights is the way that you can kind of measure how important is this in my process, or how important is this to fight for with my team, or with your hierarchy of leadership. And for us, like in the case of Nike, insights was everything. As a sports performance brand, that was the rhyme and reason why we were building product, and why they still build product today. And insights come from performance in that case. So how a player plays, the player size, the player position, the needs that they need, the needs that they have to do their job well on the field or the court. And so learning the in-depth, like, I guess, minutia of their world. That's what an insight is I need to get faster off the line. I need to break harder in this curve. I need to get down the court faster. And that's your problem to solve. That's your insight. And so if you launch every project, with an insight, and in my case of like proof of concept, I am a proof of concept. You are a proof of concept. There's an insight that there is undiscovered, highly talented people out there that just need the support system to find their greatness. So there's a rhyme or reason for why you're doing what you're doing, and this gives you credibility as a designer, because at the end of the day, most of us have egos, and it's so easy to just say, this is what we should do because I'm the designer, or I have better taste than you, or I know what's up and you don't. Like, that unfortunately is not founded in anything. It's quite subjective, and it doesn't paint you well as a great teammate. So insights are something that is objective and something that can be argued against and argued for. And I just can't stress how important this is, because once you get into a team situation, you start to realize how many cooks are in the kitchen, and who screams the loudest is not usually, always the voice you got to go with. So you want to be the smartest person in the room, not necessarily the loudest person in the room. And insights is where a lot of that comes from. Hector, you can click the next one. Okay, so now getting into this idea of what it means to be an incredible teammate. And from a 30,000 foot level, right, in life, most of us want to be able to do whatever we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. That would be the ultimate, right? Like, there's no budget, there's no restraints, there's nothing holding you back from that. And I think what people don't realize is that you can build that potential, or you can build that future for yourself, but you have to get those tools in your tool belt to help you, sort of build the house down the road. And I think being an incredible teammate is one of those tools that is required for you to be able to move in whichever direction you want to move. And so some of the things that I learned, especially working at Nike, and now, I have a small team of about 6 people that I partner with on my proof of concept launch. And the first thing is learning to understand other people's worlds. So all of us have, when you're on a team, especially in corporate, you're responsible for a set of priorities to offer to the group. And you are graded from your boss or your leadership or your organization. You're graded on certain things, and other people, marketing, development, they're graded on other priorities. And if you're not aware of what those priorities are, it's very difficult to fit this puzzle together into a beautiful picture, because you're so concerned about your little world. And so I remember in running, my first year, I was 22, and I had gotten recruited to running to do color work and special projects. And I quickly found out that to my marketing partners, efficiency and accuracy was their number one priority, because I was putting out CADs for the color work. Like, we would get the shoe from the designer, and we would collaborate, come up with the colorways, and then you give them, to marketing. And I mean, all of it's a collaboration process, but there's a lot of handoffs where it's like, okay, I'm done with the design work and I have to give it to these people. So I see designers where it's like, well, I need more time to design, or I need more time to come up with ideas, or so people miss deadlines because they think that their world is more important than the next person's world, and it really isn't. Detail of your work, whether it's CAD work or or just detail of drawing. Take heart, take care in the work that you do, because it's going to somebody else, whether it's your consumer, your partners. Like, the details matter. And so when you start to learn what other people's priorities are, you can become a better teammate. You're supposed to lock arms. The goal is to win. So you're never going to win the race by yourself. It's a relay race, and you might have to run one leg, but you got to understand how to kind of hand off the baton, so to speak. So take interest, learn, what do you need from me? When are your deadlines? What are your meetings about? Just understand their world. I think as young people, we really need to understand our place in the room. And this is something that I usually say as a disclaimer before I even give a talk like this, is like, oh, Brittany's talking and she's, all of 28. And there's been people in the industry that are so far beyond me. And that is just know your place, like, be passionate, be energetic, be convicted, all those things. But at the end of the day, there are people that have been doing this a lot longer than us. And so trying to, one, learn from them, open your heart, open your mind, be willing to receive feedback, be willing not to win, meaning just because you had the idea and you're the creative doesn't mean, you're the best idea. There are other priorities within a business unit than design priorities. And so that leads to my next point of understanding the hill that you're charging. You're a team, which means everybody is bringing a point of view and a expertise to the table. And so understanding the value of other people's presence in the room and how those all fit together like a little Rubik's Cube to make the most beautiful product, meet all the business needs, meet the athletes' needs, or meet the consumers' needs. You got to understand the greater picture. And sometimes that helps you start to understand which swords to die on, which things to fight for, when to rev your engine and when to pull back. And then understand the players and their MO. And this is a really honest, transparent statement. And that is that not everybody comes to the table with pure motives, right? And I'm speaking from a place of, we want to be that leader, that thought leader at the table. As a designer, you're often required to lead. People are expecting you to put pen to paper and put ideas out there that are not yet in existence. And so that is on you. You're the first person to express what that may be. And we want to do that from a really pure place. You want to do that from a place of what's best for the team, what's best for the consumer, what's best for the marketplace. How does this best answer the insight that I started this whole project or idea or business from? And you will notice that people will get behind or entertain or cancel or block different things based on what their motives are. And so it's on you to learn who those people are, not just who they are, but how everybody on your team moves, to best persuade. Sometimes you have to appeal to people in different ways and plead with them in various ways to do the best for the team. And that really is what leadership is put the team on your back, put the team before you, and just be aware of what it takes to link arms with other people to accomplish, the best product. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so this idea of it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. And this plays right back into that last point of you need to learn how to speak. And I didn't realize the importance of this until I really got up, and like I said, as a designer, you're a thought leader. You're the one that takes initiative to ignite like the next concept, the next idea, and give birth and give life to something new. And so you have to learn how to articulate that. You have to learn how to articulate where you're coming from. You have to, again, to this notion of people are not clairvoyant. People don't understand. Like I said, everybody has different priorities. So everybody, even just in the world, we all come to the table with different tinted glasses on because of our experiences, our worldviews, our priorities, our values, our beliefs. And so you will do well for yourself, especially as a creative. And I know it's hard because so many people are introverts, but um, if you can really garner this skill of learning how to speak, it becomes a really powerful tool to not only to tell your story, but also to convey your product, convey your experiences. And that's really what brings people in. And again, to this notion of team, you want you want people on your side. You don't want to be, the odd man out or the black sheep. And so if you can learn, like I said, how to articulate or how to bring yourself to your team in a way that brings people in and makes people feel a part of the process, a part of the idea, you start to win, and you really start to brand yourself well, as far as people want to work with you, because you're easier to follow. The other notion that I run into, and I run into as an extremely, I run hot. I have been labeled a pinball machine, like so many things, and they're not even things that I'm not like okay with. But learning to temper yourself, because our passion, most creatives we're emotional, we're passionate. None of those things are infallible or wrong or should be removed. Again, to this notion of team and persuasion, you have to learn when to rev your engine, when to stand up for something, when to say, no, this is why this is right, this is why we should do it. It's a lot, again, in how you say it. I had a mentor of mine when I was in college. I was interning, and I went and I sat down with him when I was at Nike, right before I was supposed to go back, because I was supposed to be the IDSA president my senior year of college. And I was like, I feel like I just don't resonate with young people, and I feel like people don't get me, and I don't get them, and yet I'm supposed to be this president and this leader, and I have these natural abilities, but like there's a lot of ships passing in the night here. And he looked at me and he said, you need to learn to temper yourself, because a lot of people don't know what to do with that level of energy. And I've had probably 2 to 3 instances where I've really shot myself in the foot, professionally, because I couldn't control my passion, whether it was positively or negatively. And I see great designers, great, super talented designers all the time get labeled terrible, and people don't work with them because they can't temper themselves. And then this idea of curating the voices in your life. And so I think internally and externally, right? To this notion of how do we talk about things? There are mentors, there are peers, there are friends, there are parents. There's so many voices in our life. And I think I see a lot of people, and I am guilty of this as well. We turn into Bambi on ice. If you've seen Bambi, you know what I'm talking about, where he's trying to talk or he's trying to walk, and like all 4 hooves go in a different direction. And that's just not, it's just not productive. So you don't want like a hoof in every direction listening to 50 different people in your life. And so like for me, I basically have a board of like 10 people in my head. It's nothing professional or crazy, but it's like, okay, I listen to my mom, I listen to my sister, I listen to, my dad sometimes. I listen to various mentors that have known me for a long time. And because you're going to get we're always getting input, whether we're taking it in on social media with this visual diet or podcasts. Like, you have to learn how to curate what voices you're listening to. And that also goes for the mind that's inside our own heads. And for me, I've spent a decade hyping myself up, trying to convince myself that I'm going to be great, I'm going to be awesome, I'm going to da-da-da-da-da, I'm going to accomplish, I'm going to win. And, I think I've probably taken that to an extreme. In fact, I know I have, but that is it's a lot of the belief that's in your heart is what carries you through the waves that you might otherwise ride like a jet ski, of the voices that are going to come into your life. And again, in corporate America, it's intense, and the cooks in the kitchen. So just understanding, you got to be open to feedback. You've got to be willing to be critiqued. You've got to be willing to grow. But just understand where that's coming from, and who you want to listen to. And so, like I said, everything in life is about how you talk about it, how you phrase it, the tone in your voice, the way that you articulate, whether it's visually through sketches or with your actual speaking. Take care in how you approach the world. And then I think it's my final slide. Yeah. Okay. So this final idea of, or this overarching idea of people, like in a euphoric or euphoria world, we would all just do what we love. We would all just do what we're passionate about. And I tend to live in that little utopia, that I want this, I'm going to create that, I want all these things. And it doesn't have to be out there. You can go from like tangible world to like utopia world. There is a way to bridge those. And this idea of killing everything you do with a trajectory, with a direction, with an intention, with a hope towards what you want. In my case, it's proof of concept. I want to prove that young people have value when they're supported, when they're developed, when they're loved. And I want to prove that, the concepts that I make can innovate for your everyday life. That's my like hope. That's my dream. That's my effort. And by killing everything I do in the middle, that allows me, and when I say in the middle, I mean from college to now and for the rest of my life, because I'll probably always be in the middle, is that you're creating these legs for yourself to run. And another example that I love of this is LeBron James. And if you look at LeBron, we all know him for basketball and the iconic player that he is. So if you think about life as a T structure, right? LeBron has gone very deep in basketball. He's gone to the deepest of what it could be. But that has allowed him to now move laterally to create impact, building a school, starting a movie company, starting a media platform for athletes, starting a marketing company, and so many other things that he has, impact across. But he couldn't move laterally across his dreams if he hadn't gone deep in his skill set. And that's something that as creatives, we need those are what I call legs. You can run whatever race you want to run. You can move as horizontally as you can or want to, but you can't do that unless you've put the legs under you to run those races. And that comes from killing everything that you do. So that is my synopsis.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that insightful information. And we're gonna kind of just start, this dialogue between you and I. And I'm gonna start bringing in questions from the audience about the lecture. But first and foremost, thank you to everyone for just being patient. I'm happy it worked out because that was amazing. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Yeah. I was like, no, please.
It's okay. It's just goes to show that we gotta adapt. It's fine.
Yeah, true.
But we do have a couple of questions here. One of the questions is from Dylan. He wants to know. He says that I think more designers should learn the business side of design, that sales and connects the work. So I guess to add to that, I think being more of a generalist designer, right? So not only understanding what is industrial design, but also, diving into business and marketing, communications and engineering and a little bit of
Yeah.
other disciplines to make you kind of this generalist,
Right.
all around designer so that you can succeed at a company like Nike.
So you're saying, do you need those tools in order to be successful? That's the question?
Yeah, we can turn that into a question. So, yeah, I mean,
What would you?
your experience at Nike, were you siloed or did you have to really learn how to talk
Sorry.
to?
Okay, I understand. No, it was extremely siloed. And that is actually something I would say to designers that want to be like purist designers, like you go work at a place like Nike, um, the better you are at design, the more valuable you're going to be in that environment, because they have other people to do those other jobs and do them a lot better than you could. They went to school for those things just like you went to school for design. So a jack of all trades, or what is that term? Something master of none. I forget what that um, that that does not really serve you as well in an environment like that, because they're really looking for the best of the best at what you do, because they can add all those other components to you. If you want to take the route of more of like entrepreneurship, like what I've done, um, you know, having an understanding about business is really important. But even there, you can find people, and I definitely have those people that are informing me of how to go about this that's beyond my natural, like, even interest. Um, and I have to learn it because I'm responsible for the thing, but understanding that you can also bring in, and my mentors say this a lot too, is like, a lot of startups fail to bring in the right people, and that is because there are experts out there. So in general, I would say always go deep in your skill set before you start thinking about other things, and especially if you want to go to a company like Nike or Adidas or any of these organizations that expect the best design work.
Another question here from Ben. From your experience, how have you been able, or what examples have you seen of someone in a creative lead role managing the decision-making process while there are a lot of cooks in the same kitchen? Do you have any strategies or things we could practice?
Um, yeah, I mean, when you can put the power back in the people's hands, I think that's when you start to get the best work from people. So if you're a decision maker, if you're a leader, um, organization from an organizational hierarchy standpoint, like a manager or something, or a design lead, when you put your team, when you put the power back to your team, like saying, well, what do you want to make, what do you want to design, what do you think we should do, when you start giving people responsibility, that's when you start to see people take ownership, and then they get excited about the work that they're doing, you get more passionate, and then you as the manager person, you're seeing things above the funnel that they can't see, so you have maybe another filter that the work needs to be, sliced and diced through. And that, I think, allows you to make the decisions. Like, for example, business decisions, designers always want to make the most expensive thing ever because we like cool things, but those cool things cost money. And as a manager, you're supposed to be managing like the business unit and like margins and different things. So if you can put the power to your creative team to get them to do their best work, and really, unleash them and believe in them and develop them, take time, take interest. And I'm purely speaking as someone under this. I'm not really at that level. I'm speaking from being managed by some really amazing people and some not so amazing people. And you're going to get the best work from your team when you believe in them, when you empower them, when you put responsibility back, and then you help curate the decision making based on information above their pay grade, so to speak.
We have a question here from Anonymous. Do you have any advice for students who are struggling to land internships or jobs?
I mean, I would have to know a little bit more of the context. I think that, your work usually is your work is the thing that opens the door as far as a creative goes. So if you're struggling to get jobs, or internships, having a personal contact with someone, like whether it's an email or go on LinkedIn, being able to, one, you should elevate your work. If your work isn't up to par, then that's going to be the first roadblock. So if you accomplish that, then go on a place like LinkedIn. If there's a company you're interested in, search the company, look at the employees, look at their titles, and then message them and say, hey, I'm interested in this. Here's my portfolio. Do you have any feedback for me? And use your work as the little door opener, to get you into places. But that also warrants a work ethic and then a certain tier of work that you can compare kind of where you're at on the spectrum of talent. Like if you go on Chloroflot or Behance, I used to do that in college, and be like, wow, I am not good. And then I would be like, okay, I got to get better. And like instant, it's motivation. If you're committed to working through it, it's not it shouldn't intimidate you. It should just motivate you.
Yeah, because you're essentially competing with on a global scale, not with your graduating class or with your friends from other schools.
Yes.
You're competing from applicants from all over the world. So,
Yeah.
we have a question here from Daisha. Can you elaborate on tempering yourself? Are there examples you can share?
I mean, okay, I remember one. To be specific, I had just finished a design, and we were going to our leadership. It was me, like two other footwear designers, and two of our color designers, and we were supposed to be taking our concept to Nike leadership for like design review. And I remember the little innovation in the outsole that we had been working on had been tested and it was working. And I was really excited because I was like, this gives the shoe reason to live, in the line. And I remember standing up there and I was excited and I was like, and it works. It really works. And like, I remember the color designers just kind of looking at each other and then looking at me and like kind of snickering. And I was like, interesting. I just took note of it and it wasn't a big deal. Nobody said anything. But I realized that sometimes your like passion or like youthful energy can come off like not professional because you're like, you come off almost childlike, that then devalues your credibility. It's like, okay, now she's excited about this, and the thing is, again, your behavior and the way that you go about things, whatever it may be, brands you. People are like, well, this is what I'm going to get from Brittany. I know what I'm going to get from her. So whether it's my tone of voice, the style of my sketches, the clarity or lack of clarity in my presentations, like, what are people going to get from you? And so I kind of had to learn to, Nike was my dream job and I was excited to be there. But you can't come off like a 16-year-old girl like on her birthday, like a Christmas. I tend to have this like Christmas morning excitement energy. I'm always like, a sample comes in and I'm just hyped and like, oh, it looks great, or oh, it looks terrible. And it's just like, if your pendulum swings hard emotionally in the way that you express yourself, it doesn't necessarily help you as a professional. And so for me, I've tried to keep that, because keep it, but like I said, temper it. So it's packaged in a way that's digestible to other people. It's receivable. And yet I still get to share the twinkle in my eye that's happy about, whatever I'm working on.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that helps.
We have a question here from Spencer. He says that you seem fairly confident in your path, which he admires. How do you balance your confidence and openness to new things, especially for younger designers like yourself? You mentioned a board of advisors, but do you ignore all else?
I don't know. I mean, I think the way that I'm wired, and this is such a subjective answer, I don't know that I have the growth to give you anything other than a subjective answer. And that is that like, I, I just respect who I respect, and I don't respect who I don't respect from a professional level. Um, and so that is usually, and it's not just within design. I have friends across the industry in other functions. But it's based on that. It's based on their experiences. It's based on the like just the credibility of the things that they've built as well, and their values. Like, are they giving back? Do they care about their community? Are they a complete asshole? Like, what is the where are they coming from? And do we move similarly, with a similar heart, with a similar intensity and relentlessness? Um, and if I have, if I have witnessed that level of respect, then that's usually who I pay attention to. I don't know. I mean, there's so many voices in the world, even my own friends, and I'm just like, God, like, you just have to pick, who are you listening to? And in my case, and it does apply to design, is like my own intuition, or in a secular term, it would be my intuition. In my personal terms, it'd be my relationship with God. And like, just listen to your heart, and that helps you start to decipher through and discern what voices should take a place at your table.
Sure. Thanks for answering that. We have a question here from Nick. He would love to hear a bit more about your business. How did you start your business in terms of raising capital, and how do you intend to bring other ideas to life?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it takes money to make money, right? And so in some, I guess I've taken out a loan basically, and that's what's funding my projects, as well as I work to fund them. And I think it's pretty standard for small businesses to, either you're getting an investor, or you're taking out a loan, or you just have money, and that's great. I'm more of the person in the middle, and you just kind of have to know what you're getting into, and just be committed to the end goal, knowing that it will all pay off. It'll, hopefully the balance will go from red to green. And yeah, I mean, the other thing, to the point of tempering yourself, I have 60,000 ideas, but I can't afford to make them all at once. So then you're looking there at like the numbers, you're looking at the business, like, oh, this will drive this much dollars, or this is the most commercial item. This many people would be more drawn to this. So only early adopter people might pick this up. So when you're launching something, you kind of want to pick the safer, more commercial items and launch with that, and then use that capital to funnel your next, endeavors. And you have to build credibility as a brand, just like Apple, Starbucks, Nike. We all know what those brands are, and why we love them or don't love them. And it takes a long time. It takes, I feel, up to years to really build that, with a brand. And then once you do, then you can start making a little bit more out of the box, stuff. It's just about what position you take in the market.
Yeah. I think as an entrepreneur, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about your sense of urgency.
Sense of urgency.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm much more of the thought, which is funny, because I as a creative, I'm very emotional. I'm like, oh, I'll start this and I'll stay up all night starting it, and then the next day I'll hate it and I'll completely abandon the idea. So in that sense of urgency, I've had a lot of that. The older I've gotten, and this is mostly from tripping and falling on my face a lot, I am learning that the more strategic you are and the less pressured you are, the longer, maybe the more longevity you start to offer yourself, because you have been more thoughtful with your resources. You've been more thoughtful with your energy, with your time. And I create with a sense of urgency, in the sense that I don't dilly dally. I'm constantly making, I'm constantly designing. Like, I'm never not designing, unless I'm on a long walk or listening to, talking to my mom or something on the phone. So there's a sense of urgency in the pace at which I work, but there's a lot of thought and strategy, and I would dare to say restraint in how I think about putting things out in the world, if that makes sense.
Okay. Here's a question from Paven. The kill everything you do approach sometimes feels never ending. So how do you know when and where to stop?
Yeah, good question. I feel that for me, and maybe this is the only way I know how to answer it, is like your tiers of priorities. So sometimes, two things. First thing, sometimes we can take on more than we can chew, right? And I have been guilty of that multiple times where I don't know how to say no to stuff, whether it's myself or other people. And so then this idea of killing everything that I do becomes impossible because I'm overloaded.
Mm,
So one, learning how to say no helps you regulate that. And then two, um, you know, killing everything you do can have different terms. So like, for example, working at the retail floor, I cared about how many shoes I sold. I cared about the consumer experience that I was offering. Um, but when you clock out, you clock out. Or when you have to like live within the terms of your humanity. Like you cannot just like, I don't know. In college, I pushed myself to a limit that was unhealthy, like 16 hours of sleep over 1 week type thing. And, um, and that becomes unhealthy. So if I would have prioritized like, hey, I'm more efficient in my design work when I'm more well rested, my mind is thinking quicker, I can make decisions faster, I can make better decisions faster. But that requires me to sleep for 8 hours or 6 hours at least a night. It's about, being able to step back and observe yourself, observe the life experience that you're having, observe your quality of life, and look at what is making it better and what is making it worse, and then decide, I'm going to go after these three things. Like don't assume that you can just hulk up and like, conquer the world. I am very pointed with the directions that I go, and then I just try in that trajectory to nail everything that I'm doing. But yeah, and I mean, and another example of that would be like, I spend a lot more time exercising and sleeping now than I did in college, and my quality of life is way better. But that does take away from time designing or working. But I'm comfortable with that now. In college, I wasn't. I was like, I have to be working. I have to be working. I was just like a maniac. And so, like I said, the priorities shift, your values change, life will mold you and evolve you. So yeah, just understand where your quality of life and the priorities that you have, and pick a trajectory, and then just worry about being amazing at that trajectory.
yeah. We do have a question here from Anonymous. As a woman in design, would you have any advice for another young woman in the field?
Oh, girl. I can talk for days about this. Yes. Young women, unfortunately, we have to work about twice as hard to be as credible as a lot of guys in our industry. And in design specifically, it's a very male dominated field. And what I would say to young women is that your work and your work and your work is going to be the thing that breaks down barriers. And then use your voice to continue to, like, I don't know, do that tango with your work. So like I said, your skill set of learning how to speak, articulate yourself, be firm but be kind. And like, as we grow, like, we need women, we need female leaders. So that means we have to beat the system, which means that we kind of have to play the game a little bit. So be mindful of how you carry yourself, be mindful of being a professional, be mindful of the detail and the commitment that you put towards your work. And at the end of the day, there are very progressive organizations out there. There are progressive people, thinkers, leaders, and those are the people, like I said, know the players in their MO, and align yourself with the people that are going to believe in you, carry you forward. But I just can't stress enough how your work will speak far louder than anything. And sometimes that's a blessing. Like if you're not even in the picture and you're just submitting design work, or someone else is presenting even on your behalf and is like, wow, this is amazing. And then they're like, yeah, Brittany did it. Like that, the ultimate, cosign from people that are respected, it really helps. And I would just say, just stay in the fight. Like there's so many of us trying to do this with some dignity and self-respect, and it can be done. I want to win just to prove that it can be done. And yeah, just focus on being an incredible creative, whatever field you're in, and then just carry yourself well as a woman, and people will want to work with you. It's not as maybe grim as some people paint it, but understand that it is a real thing.
Yeah, here's a question regarding design education. During your time at Nike, who do you think the company was more inclined towards hiring? Someone who went to college or someone who didn't?
It's funny that you bring that up, because I went to college, but I was still paranoid that I was not qualified to be hired by them. And what I learned very quickly is that they don't care. Design is such a tactical skill that can be expressed for other people to digest. And it doesn't matter if you have a degree or if you don't. It's strictly about talent and articulating your brain in a way that is new and irreverent and fresh and innovative. And those skills or qualities are not dismissed, if you don't have a degree. I know it takes longer sometimes, because the skills that are compacted into 4 years might take longer to build, on your own or gain or learn, but 100% it can be done. It has been done. There's, the guy that designs Paul George's shoes, and like one of the main designers in Nike basketball, didn't go to school for design, just super talented, self-taught, posted his work on Nike Talk back in the day, and like got discovered. So it's a real thing in the industry, and like anybody that tells you otherwise is just being honestly.
Just being an educator?
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides the mentors that you mentioned, are there any other resources that you would suggest, such as books, that you feel have heavily influenced you as a designer? And this is a question coming from Nicole.
Mm. Heavily influenced me as a designer. Um, for my personality type, I'm not that great at reading. There's a reason I'm a designer. I can draw and I can talk, but I can't really read, can't really write. So I listen to books on tape, but I would say it's more been my visual diet of imagery. So I spend a lot of time on blogs. I'm always looking for like the next new interesting thing that people are creating out there, whether it's architects, new trends in graphic design, obviously apparel and how the apparel market moves. Because I'm in footwear still, I pay a lot of attention to the runway. And I would say like that influx of information visually has been mostly what has informed me. But there was a book that one of my mentors recommended to me. What was it called? I'll remember it. But it was about, it changed the way I thought too. Dang, what's the name of the book? I'll remember it. And next question, I'll come back.
Sure, absolutely. We have a question here from Malika, and her question is, in school, we were told that our first job out of college would cement you in that particular discipline, furniture, shoes, etc., and that it is hard to change industries. What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any advice for someone looking to change industries?
I mean, I don't want to completely say that statement isn't valid, because it is. I've seen that happen to me with footwear, where it's like I can't just apply to, for example, furniture, and they're like, oh, But I think it's all in the body of work you present. So, for example, if for me, if I work in shoes and I want to switch to baby products, then I need to take the time to go make up 2 to 3 baby products and show my design process in creating those things. Um, and and then put it into a portfolio along with my footwear. So it's like you can show, oh, I've done professional level work with my skill set, and here's how it applies to this subject matter. Here's how I understand the marketplace for, KitchenAid or whatever career or industry you're trying to jump through. I think it's understanding that marketplace at the level that you understand your previous marketplace, and then designing for that and showing that your skill set applies. I think it can be done. I do think it is an effort. I mean, you have to create the work, but again, like I said, we live and breathe and die by our portfolios. So that
Right.
is really, really what it is.
Here's a really good question about family, and I know how much you really think family is crucial. I admire how much you appreciate your mom and her perspective. What role of family or your design family has helped you grow?
Mm. Yeah, I do love my mom a lot. I love her because she just has unconditional support, love, criticism. Like she's the ultimate coach, like just the ultimate person in my corner. I talk to her a lot about like intuitions. And also, I think our moms or our parents or people that are outside of what we do are a great way to test, like, hey, does my idea make sense? Because your ideas should make sense to people outside of your little cave of our own minds. And so a lot of times I will show my mom stuff and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you understand this? Like, oh, and then you can do this and this. And like, I can tell, like, if she tracks with me as I'm explaining, I'm like, okay, I think I'm onto something. But if I repeatedly lose her and I have to go, and she's a smart woman, so I'm like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board here. Um, and then from a career place, I mean, she's a great sounding board because she's been listening to me rant for my whole life. And so she'll be like, oh yeah, well, you've always said you wanted to do furniture, and she'll come in with the sound bites that like help me remain true to who my person is and not be swayed by, things out there that could otherwise take me for a joyride.
I'm gonna ask a couple more questions and then we'll kind of start wrapping things up here.
Okay.
Here's a really good question from Dylan about your mental health and anxiety. How do you manage that? I know that on Instagram, you talk about it and you bring up
Yeah.
through your stories. You try to have dialogue about it. How do
Yeah.
you? What are some ways that you manage anxiety and mental health?
Um, I mean, for me, a lot of times it's like control what you can control, right? So if something is out of my control, like for example, let's take the COVID-19 situation, that is out of all of our control. That has had effects on our incomes, our daily life, like it's affected everything. Um, those kinds of things, I've had waves of like, what if, or it disrupted my process with my business. And those moments I have just had to, I make a deliberate decision in my mind and in my heart to, as my mom would say, guard my heart. And not, I'm not going there. I'm not going down that hole. I'm not. And it's a level, and to the point of the flyer, mental toughness, or in my case, it's a lot based, it is all based in my relationship with God, and saying I'm just choosing not to go down that hole. It's not productive, it's not helpful. I do try to take inventory of where it is self-inflicted. I like I said, I in the past I have tended to um over say yes to things, and so I pile on this workload that I can't deliver on at the level I would want to deliver on. And I notice sometimes when I'm getting introduced to a project, I will get, like, from a client, something, outside of what I would initiate. I will get like a tension in my chest, which I would equate to as anxiety. And if I get that, I pass on the project, oddly enough. And I've learned to decipher between um, intimidation and anxiety, because there have been projects that I've taken on where I was slightly intimidated at the beginning, and I was like, whoa, okay, I think I can do this. I know I can do this, but I've never done it before. And I would call that, intimidation. Or there's this anxiety where I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go, and I don't know if they're going to be good people, and I don't, it's like there's a different essence about it. So I pay a lot of attention to my heart and what my intuition tells me. And as my mother would say, your intuition never lies. And that has proven to be true for me as well, where I've shot myself in the foot by ignoring the feeling, or I've followed it and I've had a lot more peace. So yeah, guard your mind, guard your heart, and then follow your intuition.
Yeah. Here's the last question on mentorship. How do you go about finding a mentor, and what ways could someone at different levels of their career find a mentor?
Um, well, my approach has been based on, I wanted something specific. So in my case, I wanted a job at Nike. Or now I want to grow this organization. So I look for people who are doing what I would love to be doing in like 10 years. I look for those people, and where I look for them is Instagram. I look for them on the internet. I call my friend, like as in LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever, like use the social platforms. And then I use my networks, my friendships, like, hey, I'm looking to talk to somebody about these things. Do you know anyone? And you just start the outreach process. Sometimes it takes months, but eventually somebody will come across your path that's like had more experience than you. And then you just, again, lead with your brain, lead with your work, lead with content that people can critique you on. Because just having a one-on-one, like, I've been on the other side of the table from a mentorship standpoint, and it's really frustrating when people are like, so tell me about you. And I'm like, that is not how this works. Like, that's not productive. It doesn't help. Like, the goal is to get better. The goal is always to get better, to learn and to grow. And so when you bring a tactical, like, bring your list of problems, bring your list of insecurities, bring your list of inferiorities, whatever it may be. I want to get better. Like, Tiger Woods was terrible at putting or whatever it was. And he was like, I'm going to work on this until it's my best hit. And then sure enough, he became maniacal at putting. So it's like, take the thing that you don't have, or the thing that you are not good at, and bring that to people. And it works every time. It's just a matter of being patient and consistent with your outreach, and then bring real things to people that they can coach you on and support you. Because if there's nothing there, then what are you going to talk about? And people don't want to waste their time. So that's a real thing, is just being thoughtful, I guess. I don't know what the word is, thoughtful about how you are asking for somebody's help.
Absolutely, especially since time is something that we can't buy or get back.
Yeah.
Mentorship is an organic thing that happens, not something that you ask and you force it onto someone. But
Yeah.
that definitely comes with experience as a young designer who goes through the ringer and learns all these new things at a consultancy or at a company.
Yeah. I mean, there was a kid that me and my mentor who helped me through college, he pointed the kid to me and was like, hey, you should talk to her. She'll be able to be more hands-on with you than I can. But we both were helping him, emailing, sending work, da 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 da. And this went on for about 6 months. And then me and my mentor got coffee, and he was like, hey, have you talked to him? And I was like, yeah, but I kind of backed off because I saw no improvement after like 3 rounds of the same critique. And if you can't show that you can be coached, then people don't find it worth the investment. So take your time in improving yourself before you bring yourself back to your mentors or your people. And then it becomes a relationship that has this cadence where they know and they expect something of you. And then again, it brands you, and they want to help you, they want to endorse you, they want to help you get a job, play the whole chess game.
Yeah.
But again, that's on you as a mentee to do the work, in a way that's tactical for them to help, tactical and practical.
Absolutely. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for being part of our weekly Lens session.
Yeah.
Just a couple of announcements. This recorded session will be available on our website. I believe this is episode number 13, and all other episodes are up on our website for you to check out. So feel free to go and reference them. Another announcement is after this chat, we're moving to another Zoom, like literally right after here, that we were going to host another Zoom chat for those who want to continue talking about some of these topics. We'll send you an email so that we can actually see each other's faces and turn on the audio, and everyone can share their thoughts. So like that, because I think this insightful information that you're providing is rich, and definitely I'm sure more people want to talk about it. I want to make sure that for those questions that we didn't get to, that everyone has an opportunity to voice their opinions as well. So I'm actually going to paste on this chat right here the information for the next Zoom chat, which will happen in literally like a minute or so. If you want to join us, and if you don't, then we'll see you at our next Lens session, which is going to be announced tomorrow. Brittany, I can't thank you enough for everything that
Yeah,
you
thanks
do
for having me.
for the community, but also everything that you've done for us, Advanced Design. So thank you so much.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Have a good afternoon, everyone, and enjoy your Sunday. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening.